Hello, guys. Welcome to this new edition of Mind Podcast. This is Aadit Kapadia coming to you on the other side of 2021. Hope you all had a brilliant end of the year to 2021 and have had a great beginning of 2022. We had taken our customary 10-day break at the end of the year. So happy new year to everyone, and hopefully everyone's staying safe, healthy, and dare I say COVID free. It's funny, we used this in 2020, like in 2020, 2021. That's when I actually was COVID positive as well. But feels like we've all moved a cycle and come back to the same place. But we're all safer, we're vaccinated, now the symptoms are slowing. So, that there is hope in the end. But to kick things off, for the New Year's, we have a pure political podcast, just like you guys like it, and which kicks off the Indian election season as well. The state elections are scheduled in India in five states: Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Punjab, Goa, and this is I think it's Manipur, if I'm not mistaken. But
Yes.
basically, yeah. So yes, I was afraid I was going to get the fifth state right and wrong. So, but I I have a phenomenal podcast lined up for you, which we're going to focus on Uttar Pradesh, and I have a great panelist with me today. I have with me Vikas Saraswat, who's an entrepreneur, a writer. He's a columnist at multiple platforms, including Swarajya and Dainik Jagran. He's been with the Indic Academy as well, and has been on. I mean, I've known him on Twitter for a long time, but he's written some fascinating takes on various issues, national, international, but does write on UP, Uttarakhand, and so forth. So you welcome to Mind Podcast, Vikasji. Great to have you.
Pleasure connecting. Pleasure connecting, Adit.
Yeah, and I think you're at a vantage point where you can talk about Uttar Pradesh and you can talk a little bit about Uttarakhand as well. So you're at the perfect vantage point. But we want to keep the first part of the discussion about Uttar Pradesh, and then we'll talk. We'll at the end we'll get to Uttarakhand and end the podcast with that. But to kick things off, Uttar Pradesh votes in seven phases, I believe, and the results are in March 10th. 403 seats. Last time was a stupendous result for the BJP. At that time, Yogi Adityanath was not projected as the chief ministerial candidate. He was, of course, announced after the election. But at that time, BJP got a humongous mandate, more than 300 seats. And if you add, but this time it's a very different challenge. This time, no chief minister has come back as an incumbent for a long time. Mayawati lost, Mulayam Singh Yadav lost, Akhilesh Yadav lost, uske pehle Kalyan Singh lost, and so it's a very tricky situation. So, but Vikas ji, to come to you first, what do you think? आपको initially क्या लगता है कि just a historical perspective, can this be done, and where does the BJP stand here?
The exit polls, Adit, all the exit polls,
Mm-hmm.
plus my interactions with the locals and the general pulse tells no that this is going to be a repeat. Actually, Yogi ji is going to repeat it. Only question is how big the margin is. So in this way, no, this will be historic because since 1984, there is no party which has won an election being an incumbent. And secondly, in the history of Uttar Pradesh politics, it is probably only one chief minister, Sampurnanandji, in 57. Being an incumbent, he got re-elected. So after that, no, if Yogi manages, this will be the second CM, sitting CM, getting re-elected. That's one thing. Secondly, on the numbers part, no, the present tally is actually 303 for BJP, but the tally in 2017 elections for BJP was around 311 or 12 or something like that. Added to that, some 9 seats of Apnadal, so they were around 320 plus as an alliance. BSP got around 19 seats. Samajwadi managed to get 47 seats. Samajwadi, the BSP, in fact, was a bit higher in terms of votes polled. So they were in excess of around 22 plus. SP was 22, something like that. So that was the scenario. Of course, a lot of desertions took place in BSP,
Yeah,
and then a lot of by-elections also happened. So
yeah,
this is the thing, and the historical significance lies in the fact, no, that
Mhm.
an incumbent government after a long time, UP, as you know, no, a very tough electoral scene.
Mm.
Getting re-elected is something very, very big for a state which has been steeped into caste politics. Cynicism at large prevails there. Someone on a track record of governance getting re-elected will be not only big for UP but for India as such. And this is an election which is actually generating interest at the scale of Lok Sabha elections.
Absolutely. So no, to recap the 2017 exact numbers, like Vikas ji said, BJP with about 40% of the vote was at 312. BSP with about
Yes.
22% was at 19, and with SP with 21.8 was at 47. Now
Yes.
the thing is, they contested, SP contested, I think, with in alliance with Congress on some seats, or that was
Yes.
a sly alliance, and there were, on some seats Congress still ended up contesting. It was kind of
Yes.
bizarre.
Yeah.
And Congress won 7 seats, and then RLD also. I don't know if it was officially. It was not in alliance. It contested 277 seats on its own, which was a joke in itself. But what is interesting is they're saying that SP plus BSP is 23 and 22, so 22 and 21, so 43%, and BJP and Apna Dal is less than 41%. So is if SP BSP form an alliance, they will get more seats. But I want to ask you this: is can we just do simple arithmetic in UP and not talk about chemistry? Because a lot of SP voters and BSP voters are not fans of each other. So if the SP and BSP come in alliance, don't you think those voters will look for an option elsewhere? I'm not saying that will be necessarily with BJP. That could be with Congress, that could be with anyone, but they will look for a voter. There is also the caste composition issues, and there is also previous animosity. I mean, there are a lot of BSP leaders who have not forgotten what happened in the whole guest house infamous episode in the 90s, right? So how Mayawati almost seems like she's given up. She's almost like she's resigned from politics, or all close to that, right? I mean, the Mayawati of 15 years ago, 20 years ago, willing to give a fight, probably seems gayab right now.
Yeah. 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 So this experiment has already been tried, Adit.
Hmm.
2019, no, Lok Sabha, SP
Correct.
and BSP came together, and then all the results were
They
there for all of us to see.
हाँ, बट
Yes.
दे गिव दैट एक्सक्यूज 2019 तो मोदी जी का फेस था, अब तो योगी जी का फेस है, तो स्टेट इलेक्शन है, राइट? तो व्हिच पार्टली कुड बी ट्रू दैट नेशनल इलेक्शंस में द इश्यूज आर डिफरेंट, बट स्टेट इलेक्शंस में उतने भी अलग नहीं होते कि यू कैन जस्ट कंप्लीटली गो अवे
Uh,
एंड टेक आउट द केमिस्ट्री इशू.
yes. 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 So I mean, BSP numbers even in the exit polls are showing somewhere around 15 to 16%, and SP by and large is the main contender. If we see the last assembly elections, no, you already mentioned that the BJP numbers were somewhere what the present numbers are predicting. So, despite the farmer protest, so-called farmer protest, and despite a few of the leaders deserting, the numbers are by and large the same for BJP. It was around 40%, 39 to 40% in the last assembly elections. Add to that the Apnadal numbers, it will go up to 41 point something percentage. Even now, almost all the exit polls are predicting almost the same, whereas the SP numbers are still 34 or 35%. And you see, when this becomes a bipolar contest, every addition of one more percentage of vote would add a significant number of seats to the winning side. So, what I feel, Adit, most of the that's it is my belief that most of the elections are settled 2 or 3 months uh, before the voting date. Some elections even 6 months earlier. But this is a very interesting election because even now there is a lot up for grabs. BSP, the vote percentage what we see 15 or 16 being forecasted can still dwindle furthermore, and because that is because the voter BSP voter sees that Benji is not a serious contender this time. So my reading is that this vote might further go down, and so where this goes, that would make a further more difference. And in all likelihood, if anybody knows UP politics, this vote is not going to go to Samajwadi Party camp,
Hmm.
because there is a real threat on part of the BSP voters.
Hmm.
They are more vulnerable to threats from the SP voters than the BJP side. So there is a likelihood, and there is some sort of discussions also going on within those societies, that because Behenji is not a serious contender, so let us go. And added to that, there is this schemes also, no, a lot of,
Hmm.
whether it is free ration and the welfare schemes, they have
Hmm.
benefited that section only. So there
Correct.
is still a possibility that BSP might go down about 3 or 4 points further, and that benefit to a large extent goes to BJP, and the numbers rise substantially.
Oh, absolutely. So you can now I'm again like we want we'll slip into English and Hindi back and forth. So now I'm slipping a little bit into Hindi. बीएसपी का जो बेस है द जाटव वोट एंड सो फोर्थ राइट मायावती ने जो ट्राई किया था व्हाट शी ट्राइड वाज कि इसके साथ शी हैड एन एडिशनल पार्टली अपर कास्ट वोट आल्सो दैट शी अट्रैक्टेड इन 2007 बिकॉज उसने प्रेजेंट किया था कि आई एम एन ऑल्टरनेटिव टू मुलायम सिंह यादव ठीक है नाउ आप जो बोल रहे हैं कि उसका कोर वोट भी उसको छोड़ के जा रहा है द ओबीसी वोट दैट शी गॉट वो भी बीजेपी के पास जा रहा है सो what are the dynamics ये अब बीजेपी का composition क्या है is it upper caste vote with little bit of OBC vote and little bit of the Dalit vote just merged together what is the dynamic of the BJP
Adit, Yogi Adityanath made a statement. This is 80 versus 20 sort of fight.
hmm.
No, this might seem a little rhetorical to a lot of people, but
Hmm.
therein lies the truth also.
Hmm.
Basically, what we are seeing is an increasing coalition of all the Hindu castes in UP,
Hmm.
and only a non-serious, I mean, a person who does not know the politics of UP will brush it aside. But Hindutva has percolated very seriously into the OBC ranks. Whatever reasons you can call it,
Yeah
like
you can
communalism
agree or
and whatever.
disagree with it but this is just pure analysis that this is what's happening right now
Yes, yes, yes. And then no, a section of Dalits also, barring the Jata votes, what you mentioned, which remains the core of the BSP
hmm.
vote bank,
Hmm.
is also moving towards the Bharatiya Janata Party.
Hmm.
So a very interesting phenomena is coming up, and which might be the trend for the entire like Ganga Jamuna belt
Hmm.
in the coming times.
Hmm.
So we are seeing a massive social change actually, and
Hmm.
manifesting itself into this kind of a voting pattern. So this will be a very interesting election. My guess is that it will go up to 42, 43, even 44% of votes. So which
so
is
I mean
substantial, huge, huge, huge. Yes.
But, but 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 here is the very interesting thing, right? Is this the first Hindutva election, so to speak, right? That where we are going to see some sort of polarization, we are going to see some sort of, and I'm not talking about just religion level and stuff like that. Ultimately, polarization also on, I mean, it could be multiple reasons on whether people agree with Yogi Adityanath as a chief minister or don't agree, right? So it's a very firm choice. The MLA candidate does not matter. It's a very quasi presidential election where you might आपको अगर आपका एमएलए पसंद है नहीं पसंद है I mean, doesn't matter right it just it is what it is but
Yeah.
this is what we think do you think that's the sort of election we're looking at for UP
Adit, see, one particular moment, one particular event,
mm,
says, for example, the 91 Ram Janmabhoomi movement.
mm,
Okay, that creating a Hindutva atmosphere
mm,
and a sort of permanent Hinduization of the society,
mm,
which we have seen in Gujarat recurrently. These are two different scenarios actually. What I
mm,
am pointing out is towards the latter one. It's
mm,
see, even earlier BJP might have scored well. 2014 it was Modi's charisma actually,
mm, mm,
and 2017 it was partly discussed on the part of SP government, and
mm,
partly like Modi and Hindutva sort of a thing. This is now like becoming more and more concrete
mm,
in this election. What you
mm,
will see is some sort of a Gujarat phenomena happening to UP, where BJP now will be a very, very serious player. Whether
mm,
they slip in one election or two, that's a different thing. But
Hmm.
they are now a very, very serious Hindutva party, and there is a very serious Hindutva vote bank in UP now.
It's interesting because in 1991, when the BJP came to become, of course, in 1989 they got 89 seats from 2 to 89, but 1991 is when they assumed the role of the primary opposition because it leapfrogged the Janata Dal, and out of the 116 seats that it got, I think 52 were from Uttar Pradesh and 20 were from Gujarat, right? So those were the two like core states that propelled BJP to power. I mean, बाकी स्टेट से 5-10, राजस्थान से कुछ, महाराष्ट्र से शिवसेना के साथ अलायंस में कुछ मिले थे, but the core state where they would always sweep to power, and in that furthered in 1998 when they got 182 seats and they got it from other places. 58 still came from UP and 20 or 19 still came from Gujarat. तो वो 80 75 to 80 seats BJP could bank on whatever came to power. Now 2004 when BJP lost, curiously that number UP plus Gujarat dropped down to 43.
Yes.
And guess how much BJP lost from 182 to 182? It went down to 138. The number was close to about 45 to 46 seats.
The
Now,
same number.
the same number. So even when they lost the seats they did in Andhra Pradesh and others, had they maintained that their base, their number of seats in Gujarat and UP, they would have easily come to power. Now one could argue that the reasons were different or something. I am just arguing how important those old BJP states are to BJP's rise to power. And ironically, both states vote in the same time. UP votes in 2000, beginning of 2022, and Gujarat votes in the end. And you could generally say that the national campaign trend starts with UP, and post Gujarat, the national campaign always starts. With UPA, that was Mr. Modi started his campaign after 2012, and before that, Mr. Advani unsuccessfully started his campaign post 2008 January as well, right after Gujarat 2007. So this is a very important year for Indian politics. But I want to play the devil's advocate here, right? We've shown that where could Yogi possibly slip up? Because Akhilesh Yadav has emerged as the primary opposition leader. Like, we cannot deny that in terms of key, he has transcended Mayawati, Congress leadership, and everyone, and somehow is starting to. It may be unsuccessful, but he's trying to form a coalition to stand up to Yogi. And what I think SP wants is, if it gets more than 100 seats, then it is in a position where they can have at least 9 to 10 Rajya Sabha members and have some sort of bargaining power in case BJP falls short in 2024, or some sort of some national relevance, right, where their only MP isn't in news isn't Jaya Bachchan shouting from the rooftops in the Rajya Sabha. So what do you think? Like, I want you to go over like a scenario, like where could SP gain from its previous position?
No, SP will obviously gain from the Muslim consolidation of votes behind it.
Hmm.
One thing.
Hmm.
Okay. Then the anti-incumbency at the MLA level.
Hmm.
That also, because now SP is the natural opposition, so that
Hmm.
vote will also go towards Samajwadi Party only.
Hmm. Hmm.
Third thing, Yogi ji is a brilliant administrator, but he comes with a background. He's a Mahant,
Hmm.
uh, a Mahant of a very important
Okay.
mutt,
Yeah.
and with that, he is a certain kind of a persona
Hmm.
that is like unrelenting, unbending, and if one were to use the word, little unaccommodating also
Yeah.
in some manners. So there is like
And
some
with
scope for
some previous baggage as well.
previous baggages as well. So like and that is how a mahant has to be actually. You can't,
No,
I
no,
mean,
yeah.
a mahant cannot be just kowtowing to everything and bending towards everyone. No, that is not a mahant's persona. And this part of his persona only has helped the BJP or the government in UP
Hmm.
better its performance also. So the flip side is actually this plays a little problematic role when you have to assuage the organization, manage the organization, keep everybody happy.
Hmm.
So that is the flip side. But BJP being a cadre based party, strong organization, will come to the aid of that.
Hmm.
So what lacks in Yogi will be made up by the organization BJP.
Hmm.
So on the whole, no, there will be some sort of a difference always in a Lok Sabha election and a assembly election.
Hmm.
If this same trend, say 41-42% ends up the numbers for the assembly, even then in the next elections you will see, Adit,
Hmm.
that lot of SP voters themselves would again go to vote for BJP in
Hmm.
Lok Sabha elections. So
Hmm. Hmm.
that is always there. There are a substantial number of people within the Yadav community who say we will back Samajwadi Party for the assembly elections, but when it comes to Lok Sabha, we will vote again for Modi. So that
Hmm.
kind of 4 or 5%, and that's what you see when the last Lok Sabha elections were there. This number
Hmm.
was around 49%. So
Hmm.
I mean, whatever is lacking in Yogi because of his sort of a persona, I
Hmm.
think beyond a point, no, he can't mend his this thing also,
Hmm.
his image or his persona also.
Hmm.
Uh, but that will be made up by the party. So
Hmm.
that is my feel, and even if it's not a two-third majority, which I somehow feel should be there, if it
Hmm.
ends up at 250, 260 also, it will be a brilliant show. It will be a
It's a
grand
very
performance.
UP is a very difficult state, right? Let's go region by region now. First, you have the Purvanchal, Eastern UP region where Yogi is from. You know, the Gorakhpur, Banaras belt. That's there. BJP is on a very very strong wicket, not just because of Yogi's thing. You also have some sort of a cascading effect from Bihar in certain seats where the JDU is in power, and this time I think BJP is accommodating JDU as well, which I think the first time JDU is probably contesting after like 14 years or something. The last time they contested in alliance with BJP was 2007, if I'm not mistaken. And
Yes, yes.
और तब तो क्या था, I think BJP को कोई seriously ले भी नहीं रहा था यूपी में, if I'm not mistaken. Like 2007 तो it was a foregone conclusion कि मायावती आने वाली है.
But let us be very honest, Adit. All this is only like cosmetic value. JDU
हाँ no, no,
contesting and
वो
coming
तो
to
नहीं.
the.
No, no.
So,
This is, but
yes,
what I'm looking towards is that for SP, the reason I bring this up is because SP ka base is central UP. You know, your
yes,
Kannauj, Firozabad, that belt, and then you
yes.
have some sort of effect in western UP where there is a significant Muslim vote as well that goes towards SP. There have, and this time because of the farmers' protest, they are expecting, I don't know if they'll get it or not, a few percent of the Jat vote to go to the SP2. That's why they want an alliance with Jayan Chaudhary and the RLD कि जो भी 15-20 लाख वोट एक्स्ट्रा मिल जाए, so that might translate into a few more seats at the Vidhan Sabha level. Now that cannot translate at the Lok Sabha level because Lok Sabha seats are so huge कि अगर आप, you know, if you just swing 10,000 votes here and there, if the margin is only 1 lakh for the whole seat, you're not going to get anything. But Vidhan Sabha, that could be a different. So do you think that Western UP, Central UP, and parts of Northern UP is where SP can sort of go from 50 to 100 if they are going to? Because if BJP goes down to 260, 270, that number will probably go straight away to SP. I don't think that number will go to Congress.
No, there is no doubt about it. Congress is out of reckoning,
Yeah.
completely out of reckoning. And there is a joke that 6% of the Congress vote will always be there. That 6% is something like a very cutter. Yeah, people keep joking, no, cutter BJP and cutter. Actually, I say that there is the cutter Congressy vote is that 6% Congress vote, and
That is
that will
मतलब,
remain.
that is Amar Ujala reader base, na? I'm joking. I'm joking. Of course.
No, you are right to an extent.
कि आपको पता है अगर कांग्रेस के कितने वोट्स चाहिए, अमर उजाला की सर्कुलेशन देख लो, उसके आसपास
That's
वोट सब खड़े हो जाएंगे.
I mean, you have a very good grip about UP then. In that case, no, this is a very interesting observation.
I've joked about this with my friends. I was like, यूपी को अगर पूरा पढ़ना हो तो you start with the cadre, end with the media, और बीच में सब कुछ यूपी मिल जाएगा आपको.
Correct, correct, correct.
So that is
But
sorry,
uh,
go on. Yeah,
but the strongest part for BJP in
yeah.
Uttar Pradesh is actually Bundelkhand. They're going to be virtual clean sweep in favor of Bundelkhand.
It was
Add to
Mayawati
that,
belt.
uh, at one time,
Uh-huh.
Mayawati belt. Yeah, because Banda, Mahoba, Chitrakoot, and all. Add to that, this Chitrakoot belt is actually considered to be central UP. So
Hmm.
if you add Bundelkhand, because that's almost the same sort of a culture, and I believe the same sort of, and all of that vote is basically going to come because of phenomenal developmental works which have taken place in this area, particularly the water schemes, the potable water and all that water has gone there, no, in those areas. That is going to fetch them votes, and it will be really interesting that good administration, good governance fetching votes. I mean, it is very encouraging
Hmm.
for the
No,
voters, for the politics.
absolutely, absolutely. So this is interesting, and I'll kind of share this share this map of UP with our folks, and hopefully this will be like a good. This is from Wikipedia again, so don't roll me, guys. But this is the easiest way to share the map of UP. So and this is just kind of to show what UP is basically like, how the votes are. So if you look at this. This is your western UP region, and right here, which borders the Madhya Pradesh, that is basically the Chitrakoot, Mahoba, all these belt, where you see it's a red sweep and then a few blue pockets. And what Vikas is saying is he expects these blue pockets also to collapse. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And,
So,
see, Adit, a very interesting thing about UP, if
hmm,
somebody is unaware of the UP demography, the
hmm,
top part is
hmm.
where the starting from Saharanpur, Muzaffarnagar, and going up
Okay.
to Pilibhit and Bahraich and Gonda, and then up to Gorakhpur and all those places.
Hmm,
That is the Muslim dominated area. As you keep coming down,
hmm,
the Muslim demographics lower, and
hmm,
then the lowest part of UP is where the Muslim population is the least actually.
hmm, hmm.
So I mean, but that just doesn't mean that wherever the Muslim voters are more, Samajwadi Party is going to do better, because in those areas only the polarization also happens more.
Yeah.
But in any case, as I said, this Bundelkhand, the lower part, Jhansi to Chitrakoot area, the seats
Hmm.
are going to come because of their phenomenally good governance, good developmental work.
And
Western
they were,
UP because
and
yes,
they were very
yes.
strong Apna Dal alliance also there.
Apnadal in the this region, Allahabad, Mirzapur, and all that.
Hmm,
I mean, starting from Allahabad, Varanasi, Chandauli, Mirzapur, that belt, no,
hmm.
this Apnadal voters are there. A
Right.
lot of them are there.
In pink,
Yes.
you'll see, guys, the Apnadal voters. And if you can't see the legend, I was like, I'll tell you guys. And this all borders Madhya Pradesh. Huh? So there is a lot of shared sort of things. Like I said, the central belt is where Samajwadi Party is strong. And what you probably saw in 2017 is probably the bare minimum of what Samajwadi Party will get. I think we can be rest assured, because of the collapse of the Bahujan and the Congress Party, koi bhi election hoga, for a long time, Samajwadi Party will at least get 50 to 60 seats. And the real
Yeah,
debate
yeah,
is,
yeah.
can it push to 100 or something like that? Now, from going from 50 to 200, I think it's going to be very difficult for Samajwadi Party. And I'm just playing the devil's advocate here. कि क्या होगा या नहीं, but if they were to gain, probably I would say they would have to gain about, they will end up gaining about 15 to 20 seats in the western UP area with the alliance with RLD, in the Mathura, Hathras, Saharanpur region, जहाँ individual MLA seats जा सकती है, and they might maximize their gains in the central UP area, Kannauj, Firozabad, Etah, all those Lok Sabha seats in that region. But I honestly don't see them gaining much seats in eastern UP unless and until something drastic changes. What do you think, Vikas bhai? You think that's
Uh,
probably an
I
accurate
think
assumption?
East is still a challenge for BJP in the sense, no, that I mean, not much of difference will be there. That's my reading.
Okay.
They might have a better vote share in West. But then no, West, what happens is there are pockets where the
Hmm.
SP vote will be very, very high.
Yeah,
And in certain other areas, I mean,
especially
with
these
a little
areas.
bit of particularly this northwest, no,
Yeah,
Saharanpur, Shamli, Muzaffarnagar,
will
this
be very high.
Bijnor,
Hmm.
even some seats in Rohilkhand area, this Badaयूं,
Hmm.
Bareilly, that belt also.
Correct.
So there might be seats where they Amroha and all, where
Hmm.
they win with very high margins.
High margins. Yeah.
So that vote, in toto, the vote percentage shows something. comparable to BJP's this thing, but in certain areas they will lose, like
And I think we
even
can
with
we can be
20,000 odd.
we can be rest assured that SP probably will cross 30% in this election. They stopped at 22, but if the Congress and or at least their alliance will, because because I think now it's a decisive two-way fight in at least 200 seats in UP. And
Yes, yes,
वो अगर टू वे फाइट होता है तो by default also you end up getting 5-6 more % than what you have
absolutely,
got last time.
absolutely. So they will surely get one third of the vote, which comes to around 33%. They might
And,
end up at 35, even 36 also it might go. But
which is
because it is,
intriguing because 36% is enough where Akhilesh can actually start mounting an opposition challenge. So this time, for the first time, Yogi might have to deal with an opposition leader. Now, one could argue that Akhilesh might not be a full-time opposition leader. उसको खुद को पता नहीं है वो लोकसभा में खड़ा रहेगा या विधानसभा में खड़ा रहेगा given next election, because Mulayam is now probably close to retirement. Like I mean, I don't see how long Mulayam has in him for active politics. It's just he's getting older and then he's making. And by the way, I have to ask you this: what about Shivpal's party? I thought he also has a political party, na?
yeah, he has a political party, some four letters, PRSP or something like that. So,
But
if at
Shivpal
all-
wants to be the president of the Republic of Jaswant Nagar, na? उसको उसके बाद
yeah, he is more interested in the moolah which comes with politics rather than the power which comes with politics.
हाँ,
So, and that basically is the bone of contention also between the two, uncle and nephew. So, I mean, he was never known for political astuteness or anything. Just
hmm,
he's one another member in the party, and as you said, Mulayam Singh has taken a back seat. He's almost like a retired this thing. So
hmm,
he wanted some sort of like, I mean, uh, Shivpal and Akhilesh together taking
together.
charge of the party, because Shivpal knows a lot of old people.
Hmm.
Akhilesh thinks he can do away with the old people and can manage the things on his own.
Hmm.
Then there are some other like
And
family reasons and other. Yes,
a lot of people say that that is why उसको 2012 में जो मिला, that was the reason why he got, because a lot of people said कि maybe the Samajwadi Party might move on from the old Gundaraj days of Mulayam Singh Yadav, and Akhilesh might usher in some new blood. Of course that was not true, but but to some extent it was, like, where a few people were kept out. And I know Sharat Pradhan, the old school journalist of UP, went on every channel and yelled that Akhilesh kept DP Yadav out, and that was such a big deal. And I'm like, why DP Yadav ko akele nikala, bahar rakha? But there are about 15 others that he could have kept out, and he went along with them. So I was like, don't
yes,
just jump the gun. But that is what was portrayed on news channels,
portrait.
that Akhilesh is getting this huge Samajwadi turn. और तब तो क्या था, I think 2012 में Twitter was a small place also. Like तब हम
Yes,
लोग जब
yes,
बात किया करते थे, it was a very very informal chat वो, और news channels still
yes,
had some sort of sway. Now they don't have the
yes.
same amount of sway because there are a lot of regional voices coming out. यूपी की काफी YouTube channels है, यूपी के काफी reporters है जो बाहर आ रहे हैं. So how do you balance this?
As you said it, no, this is an election which, because the EC also has restricted campaigning in in the streets, on the lanes sort of campaigning.
Hmm.
So this is an election where the social media part will play a very important role,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
changing dynamics go against SP kind of, or any patronage sort of dispensation which patronizes the media and tries to
Hmm.
gain from that.
Hmm.
So this is going to be that.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a very different ball game now. Politics is a very different ball game. Social media becomes increasingly important
Yeah.
in the elections.
Absolutely, and social media could be the be all end all in terms of a few seats, and this is what I'm saying. You think there is a bit of elitism when people think that social media is only restricted to cities and things like that, because people think social media is only Facebook and Twitter, right? But social media is also WhatsApp. Social media is also
Yeah.
video, and social media is also and again, we are not casting opinions on what social media is or the benefits or the dangers and stuff. We are just giving analysis. And similarly, we don't like I find this a lot of problem in, especially in the left media, that they confuse opinions with analysis, right? Now they could disagree with Yogi, we could have disagreements with Yogi on various issues, but that doesn't mean you completely look away from what the reality is out there. And right now the reality is he is getting BJP closer to power in Uttar Pradesh than where they were in previous state elections. No doubt that it was the charisma of Mr. Modi that got them over the line in the first place, and then since then Yogi has come in and of course solidified the base. But it's going to be very different elections than say 2002 or 2007 was for BJP. Earlier it was BJP was like there were seats where it was indefeatable. Like it was, BJP you could not defeat. But that changed once the emergence of Mulayam and Mayawati came. And what I was telling someone was that in 1998, post 98, when BJP started weakening, Mayawati started getting stronger. Now Mayawati is getting weaker and BJP is getting back to its 1998 position, right? So do you think
Yeah.
that the circle has turned completely and we're back to
Yeah.
the pre 98 positions of BJP?
uh, as I said earlier, no, Adit, that this is actually consolidation of that Hindutva which was there for I mean, in momentary impulses in the early 90s. So this is actually a consolidation of that and a more sort of a permanent Hinduization of the polity in UP. What we
Okay.
saw in 90 was one phase. After that, no, I mean, because of the organizational weaknesses and other things, it slipped. But
Hmm.
again, you are seeing the second stage of it. This is the second phase of the Hindu politics in Uttar Pradesh. That is what I mean. And for these leftists, no, they can keep filling as many op-ed pages in the newspapers as they like.
Hmm.
Their vote in the end counts as much as the voter, I mean, one voter on the street. So yeah, because they have lost the grip, that is why the parties closer to them ideologically are also losing and
Ah,
BJP is gaining. And this filling of the op-ed pages is also, I mean, probably a luxury for them for another 10-20 years, which will slip with them. And
because
there is a new wave of
people stop
yes,
reading op-ed pages, right? People have made up their mind on what they believe in and so forth. So
yes,
that
yes,
absolutely
yes,
agree with you on that. So moving on to the last part of the discussion, and we'll wrap up the discussion now in the next 5-7 minutes. Overall, in Uttar Pradesh, there are two basically alliances now. You have the BJP alliance, which is a consolidation of part of the Dalit vote, part of the OBC vote, significant part, and part of the upper caste vote, which it still seems to be retaining significantly. Last year, we saw murmurs again on the leftist op-ed pages that the Brahmin vote was going away from BJP. But from all indications, it seems to be that it is firmly with the BJP. Of course, it's not going to be a 100% sweep. India is not a monolith, and neither is
yes,
UP. It's probably going to be a
yes,
70-80% strike rate in the upper caste vote for BJP this time as
yes,
well.
yes, yes.
So you have two significant coalitions, that and then Akhilesh going back to the old MY combination, the Muslim vote and the Yadav vote combination that propelled Mulayam Singh to power. And again, I have to say this: in 2003, Mulayam was in power with only 140 seats, so not a whole lot of seats. It was Akhilesh who got Samajwadi over 200 because he built a new coalition, talked to some OBC leaders and stuff. And the reason I bring this up is uh, BJP, a lot was made for Swami Prasad Maurya joining the Samajwadi Party and the three other ministers. Right now, this is par for the course because election se pehle hota hai. If someone gets a ticket denied, they all go to the parties and so forth, and that happens. Is Swami Prasad Maurya that significant a leader, or is his influence just around the 4 or 5 seats in the Kushinagar belt?
Not even 4-5 seats, Adit.
Acha, not even that.
Actually, yeah, not even 4-5 seats. His
Yeah.
own seat, no, Padrona,
Hmm.
you and we will watch. If he
Hmm.
manages to win also, it will be with a bare thin margin. And
Really?
that is why he wants to shift either himself or his son at least to
Hmm.
the Unchahar seat, which is considered to be a SP stronghold. That is why, and even in this, he had a tiff with the BJP because he wanted to shift to that seat. Either
Hmm.
himself or his son, one of them should go to the Unchahar seat. He's not confident of winning even his own old Padrona seat also. So
Hmm.
at the most, no, this man can swing, say, about 10,000 votes, not more than that.
Hmm. Absolutely.
That is the, yes. And there are other leaders, say, for example, one Hariom Yadav who has joined BJP recently. He was a sitting Sirsaganj MLA.
Hmm.
Sirsaganj is a constituency in Firozabad district.
Hmm. Hmm.
That man will have 50,000 votes on his own.
Hmm.
He will have 50,000 votes in at least 3 assembly constituencies. So
Wow.
many a times, no, the media, because sitting in Delhi, not even Lucknow, these people who report, no, they are not even in Lucknow. They sit in Delhi and pass judgment because Swami Prasadin Maurya has been like, he was the deputy CM in Mayawati's cabinet, and he was a touted to be a prize catch with the BJP. That's
Yeah.
how they play up. They have no, I mean, understanding of the ground level politics actually.
Yeah. No.
So
Absolutely.
Swami, yes, yes,
No. No.
yes.
No. Go on. Go
Swami
on.
Prasad, Swami Prasad. See, in the end, no, because we are coming to the close of it,
Hmm.
what I feel, three factors are the most important factors which are going to be there in this election and going in favor of BJP. One is obviously the Hindutva vote, what we have discussed earlier.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
There is a uh, ever increasing constituency of the Hindutva vote.
Hmm.
Okay. Second is the this free, I mean, this delivery of ration,
Hmm.
which in
Hmm.
a way shows the efficiency of a government, because governments, and that too particularly in a state like UP, were thought to be like, ये गवर्नमेंट का हो गया तो कुछ हो ही नहीं सकता करके ना, सरकारी तो
Yeah.
सारा चाहे कोई भी आए सबका वही. But this fact gets belied in the free ration distribution in in the case of this Yogi government. So
Yeah.
most important part
Hmm.
in this election, the most important factor rather, is
Hmm.
the improved law and order condition.
Hmm.
Infrastructure development, when it happens, no, people tend to forget how the electricity supply was 5 years, 10 years back. That
Hmm.
people tend to forget. But
Hmm.
क्योंकि सिक्योरिटी इज समथिंग जिसमें आपके गले पर सामने वाले का हाथ रहता है. So
Hmm.
it is something which breathes down your, you feel that very strongly. You
Hmm.
have a sense of it कि भैया आज से 5 साल पहले यूपी में सिक्योरिटी का हाल क्या होता था. So law and order is going to be a very important factor actually in this election. These are the
Correct.
three primary factors around which this election will be contested,
And
and they
fascinating,
all of,
one what is not a factor is corruption. Because in both
yes,
previous elections,
yes,
corruption was a massive factor with what Mayawati did, with what Akhilesh did. This time there is allegation ho to koi level kare na. Now
yes,
there. I'm not saying that there may not be people talking about specific MLAs and stuff like that. I'm saying overall, as a overbearing issue of the election, that does not seem to be the case. So with Mayawati, her biggest problem was, her biggest Achilles heel was corruption, and with Akhilesh it was law and order and security. And those, Vikas, what Vikas is saying is our strengths of that we are giving you more security. It's a relatively clean government. Now you can argue with the policies and you can argue with the cultural aspect of it, like but that's what this election is about. And again, this is 2 months before the election. A lot could change in those 2 months, but this is what it seems like, that Yogi is probably closer to power now, second term to power, than he maybe ever was. So that's the thing. Before we let you go, though, a quick word about Uttarakhand, and then we'll wrap up. What do you think is happening in Uttarakhand?
so 4 months back, Uttarakhand seemed to be a gone case for BJP actually. Very
Okay.
frankly, after one after the other, three changes, and
Hmm.
people were very, I mean, they were fed up
Yeah. Yeah.
with the frequent changes. But Dhami's style of functioning actually seems to be, I mean, going in favor of BJP. He seems to be turning the tables around. And added to that, Modi ji's thrust,
Hmm.
Modi ji's visits,
Hmm.
particularly two high profile visits, one to Dehradun and one to Haldwani,
Hmm.
has helped pick up traction for in favor of BJP.
Massively.
With Dhami, a, a significant Kumaon constituency is behind BJP. And for
Hmm.
BJP, this Chardham road project, actually, which was criticized by a lot of people, my interactions with the locals over here, because I am placed in Dehradun for a long time now, 3 4 months. So that's going to be a major vote puller, actually.
Hmm. Hmm.
Central
Absolutely.
government schemes, yes.
Sorry, central government what? You said.
Yeah, central government schemes, no.
Hmm.
Uttarakhand on its own, no, it doesn't have that much of revenue. But the
Yeah.
central government schemes which are coming here,
Hmm.
and this road infrastructure and all, it is
Hmm.
going to help BJP.
Absolutely, especially in a tourist state.
Yes.
Post-COVID era was certainly more challenging. So if BJP holds on to power, even in the post-COVID era, that'll be a
Yes.
significant achievement. But we'll cover that and more. We'll have Vikasji back on our podcast post the elections to discuss this in detail. It was great fun having you, Vikasji. Before we let you go, if you have a recommendation of a book or a movie or a show that you watched for our listeners that you like, we always give a non-political, non uh, anything that's on your mind right now.
Non-political. I am presently actually. This is there is this Meenakshi ji's book,
Ha,
Vasudev Krishna, which I
beautiful.
am presently reading. And it's a
Okay.
lovely work actually. I recommend all your viewers to
Yeah.
do go through that book.
All our
Uh,
viewers on YouTube, listeners on SoundCloud, please check out Vinakshi Jain's book on Vasudev Krishna.
Vasudev Krishna.
Fascinating, fascinating. And my recommendation for you guys is probably going to be there's a Netflix show that we watched called Stay Close. It's a fascinating show. And then there is a YouTube documentary that I watched on the Gobi Desert. Two completely different things, but watch about one of most challenging deserts in the world. But the reason I bring that up is because Mongolia is Central Asia is facing a pivot with all sorts of mining and stuff, and how that will geopolitically play out with China, Russia, and the rest of Asia remains to be seen. So, if you want some fun, watch Netflix. If you want to get informed on history, absolutely read Minakshiji's book. If you want geopolitics, we've given you another recommendation as well. But thank you so much, Vikasji, for joining us. This has been a great discussion. I hope to have you soon back on Mind Podcast very soon.
My my pleasure, Adit. My pleasure, totally.
Thank you guys. Please like, share, subscribe, and we'll be back next week with more. We're back on weekly basis, and we'll be back with Punjab elections hopefully very soon as well. A discussion on that. Till then, take care. Goodbye, and please leave your comments on what you thought about the discussion.